A new beginning. Marcus stood at the wrought iron gates of Whitmore Manor, a sprawling estate hidden at the edge of a dense forest. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the gravel driveway, and the place looked like it had been plucked from a Gothic novel, elegant yet eerie. Ivy crept up the gray stone walls, and ancient oak trees swayed gently in the breeze, their branches whispering secrets of the past. As he adjusted his satchel, Marcus took a deep breath. This was his new assignment: caregiving for Catherine Whitmore, a wealthy recluse paralyzed from a tragic accident. The agency had warned him that she was difficult, proud, and fiercely independent despite her condition. Marcus, however, wasn't one to shy away from a challenge. With steady resolve, he approached the grand oak door, its surface scarred by time. He knocked firmly, the sound echoing through the silent manor. Moments stretched into an uneasy silence until a voice, sharp and commanding, pierced the air. "It's unlocked. Come in," the voice called, cold and distant. Marcus pushed the heavy door open, stepping into a dimly lit foyer. The air smelled faintly of lavender and old wood. Ornate chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, their crystals dulled by dust. Family portraits lined the walls, their painted eyes following him as he walked. "Hello," Marcus called softly. "I'm Marcus, your new caregiver." "Living room," came the curt reply. Following the voice, Marcus entered a spacious room bathed in muted light. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked an overgrown garden, where wild roses tangled with weeds. By the window sat Catherine Whitmore, her silhouette framed against the fading afternoon light. She was elegant despite her frailty, with silver-streaked hair pulled back into a tight bun. Her piercing gray eyes, sharp as daggers, assessed him with a mixture of suspicion and disdain. "You're late," she said bluntly. Marcus glanced at his watch. "Actually, I'm 10 minutes early." Her lips thinned. Punctuality is subjective. Undeterred by her frosty demeanor, Marcus smiled warmly. "It's nice to meet you, Ms. Whitmore." "I doubt that," she muttered, turning her gaze back to the garden. "I don't need you here." "Well, the agency thinks otherwise," Marcus said gently, setting his bag down. "But I'm here to help, not intrude." Catherine's fingers tapped restlessly on the armrest of her wheelchair. "We'll see how long you last," she said, her tone a challenge. Marcus met her gaze steadily. "I'm not easily scared off." A flicker of amusement crossed her face, gone as quickly as it appeared. As the hours passed, Marcus familiarized himself with the house. The kitchen was spotless but devoid of warmth, stocked with the bare essentials. The study was a labyrinth of books and papers, and the grand piano in the living room stood as a silent testament to a past life. Later that evening, Marcus prepared dinner, a simple but hearty vegetable stew. He brought a tray to Catherine, who sat by the window, lost in thought. "I made dinner," he announced. "I'm not hungry," she said without looking at him. "Doctor's orders," Marcus insisted, setting the tray on a small table beside her. "You need to eat to keep up your strength." Catherine sighed dramatically but picked up the spoon. After a few bites, she glanced at him. "Not bad," she admitted reluctantly. "High praise," Marcus teased. "Don't let it go to your head." As the evening wore on, Catherine's icy exterior began to thaw, if only slightly. Marcus learned that she had once been a world-renowned concert pianist, her music captivating audiences across the globe. But a car accident 5 years ago had not only taken her ability to walk, but also her desire to play. "Music was my life," she said bitterly. "Now it's just a painful reminder of what I've lost." Marcus listened intently, sensing the depth of her pain. "Maybe it doesn't have to be," he said gently. Catherine scoffed. "Spare me the motivational speeches. I've heard them all." "I'm not here to give speeches," Marcus said, "just to listen." She regarded him with a mixture of surprise and skepticism. "We'll see about that." As night fell, Marcus settled into the modest guest room assigned to him. The bed was firm, the walls bare except for a single painting of a serene landscape. He lay awake, thinking about Catherine and the weight she carried. Beneath her hardened exterior was a woman who had once lived passionately, only to have that passion snatched away. The next morning, Marcus rose early, determined to make a difference. He found Catherine already awake, her wheelchair positioned by the piano. Her fingers hovered over the keys, trembling slightly. "I didn't know you played," Marcus said, breaking the silence. "I don't," she said bitterly. "Not anymore." "Mind if I try?" he asked. Catherine raised an eyebrow. "You? Play the piano." "I dabble," Marcus said with a grin. She gestured dismissively. "Be my guest." Marcus sat at the piano, his fingers brushing against the keys. He played a simple, heartfelt melody, the notes filling the room with warmth. Catherine's eyes softened, and for a moment, the weight of her sorrow seemed to lift. When he finished, she was quiet, her gaze distant. "You're not terrible," she said finally. "High praise," Marcus teased. Catherine's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "Don't get used to it." As the days turned into weeks, Marcus continued to chip away at Catherine's defenses. He respected her independence while gently encouraging her to re-engage with life. Music became a bridge between them, a way to communicate without words. One afternoon, while dusting the study, Marcus discovered an old journal tucked behind a row of books. The pages were filled with sheet music, each composition more intricate than the last. At the bottom of each page was Catherine's signature, a testament to her genius. He brought the journal to her. "These are incredible," he said. Catherine's expression darkened. "They're relics of a past life." "Or the beginning of a new one," Marcus suggested. She shook her head. "You're wasting your time." "Maybe," Marcus said, "but I'm willing to take that chance." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Catherine watched Marcus from her place by the window. For the first time in years, she felt a flicker of hope. Fragile but undeniable. Marcus wasn't just a caregiver. He was a spark, igniting something within her that she thought had long been extinguished. And though she would never admit it, Catherine Whitmore wasn't ready to let that spark die just yet. Cracks in the armor. The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Whitmore Manor, casting golden patterns on the hardwood floor. Catherine sat by the window in her usual spot, a steaming cup of tea on the table beside her. Her expression was set in its familiar mask of indifference, though Marcus had learned by now to spot the cracks beneath it. He entered the room carrying a tray with freshly cut fruit and warm toast. "Good morning," he greeted cheerfully. Catherine barely glanced at him. "What's so good about it?" Marcus chuckled as he set the tray down. "The sun's out, the birds are singing, and your breakfast looks perfect. I'd say that counts for something." Catherine arched a brow. "Ever the optimist, aren't you?" "Someone has to be." She took a sip of her tea, her lips twitching as though suppressing a smile. "You're insufferably cheerful. It's unnatural." "Cheerful beats grumpy," Marcus quipped. Catherine's eyes glinted with amusement, though she quickly masked it. "Touché." As the days turned into weeks, Marcus noticed subtle changes in Catherine. She was still sharp-tongued and fiercely independent, but there were moments, fleeting as they were, when warmth crept into her demeanor. She began asking questions about his life, though always under the guise of casual curiosity. "You have family, Marcus?" she asked one afternoon as he helped organize the cluttered study. "Yeah, I've got a younger sister, Leah. She's a teacher back in Atlanta." Catherine hummed thoughtfully. "And your parents?" Marcus hesitated for a moment. "They passed away a few years ago. Car accident." Her gaze softened, and for a brief moment, the steel in her eyes melted. "I'm sorry." "Thanks. It's been a while, but you never really stop missing them, you know." Catherine nodded slowly. "No, you don't." Later that week, Marcus found Catherine by the piano, her fingers resting lightly on the keys. The sight was both beautiful and heartbreaking, a musician longing to play but held back by invisible chains. Thinking about giving it a go. Marcus asked gently. She sighed. What's the point? My hands aren't what they used to be. Maybe not, but music's not about perfection. It's about feeling. Catherine's lips thinned, spoken like someone who's never performed on a world stage. Marcus grinned. Guilty as charged, but I've played enough to know that sometimes it's not about the audience. Sometimes it's just for you. She looked at him skeptically. Do you have a degree in motivational nonsense, or does it just come naturally? Natural talent, Marcus said with a wink. Despite herself, Catherine let out a soft laugh. One stormy evening, as thunder rumbled in the distance, Marcus prepared dinner while Catherine read in the living room. The power flickered, casting shadows across the walls. Looks like we're in for a wild night, Marcus remarked as he set 2 bowls of soup on the dining table. Catherine wheeled herself over, her expression unusually contemplative. Storms used to scare me when I was a child, she admitted. Really? Hard to picture you being scared of anything, Marcus said, genuinely surprised. I wasn't always like this, she said quietly. Life has a way of hardening you. Marcus nodded. I get that, but maybe it doesn't have to stay that way. Catherine's gaze lingered on him. You're annoyingly persistent, you know that. I've been told. They ate in comfortable silence, the storm raging outside. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that Catherine was on the brink of something. A breakthrough, perhaps, though she would never admit it. The next day, while cleaning the study, Marcus stumbled upon an old photograph tucked between the pages of a book. It was a picture of a young Catherine standing beside a tall, distinguished-looking man. Her smile was radiant, her eyes filled with joy. Catherine entered the room just as Marcus was examining the photo. Her expression darkened. Where did you find that? She demanded. It was in this book, Marcus said, holding it up. You looked happy. That was a long time ago, she said curtly, snatching the photo from his hand. Who was he? Marcus asked gently. My husband, she said, her voice tight. James. Marcus sensed the pain beneath her words. What happened? He died, she said bluntly. Cancer. I'm sorry, Marcus said sincerely. Catherine's grip on the photo tightened. I don't want your pity. It's not pity, Marcus said softly. Just empathy. She looked away, her shoulders tense. James was the only person who ever truly understood me. Losing him was unbearable. Marcus nodded, giving her space to process her emotions. Sounds like he was a good man. He was, she said quietly. That evening, Marcus found Catherine back at the piano. This time, her fingers pressed down on the keys, producing a hesitant melody. It was rough and uneven, but it was music nonetheless. Marcus watched from the doorway, a smile tugging at his lips. You're playing, he said softly. Don't make a big deal out of it, Catherine warned. I wouldn't dream of it. She played for a few more minutes before her hands faltered. Frustration flickered across her face. It's not the same, she said bitterly. No, but it's a start, Marcus encouraged. Catherine sighed. Maybe. As the weeks went on, Marcus continued to gently nudge Catherine out of her shell. He played the piano for her, coaxing her to correct his mistakes. Her critiques were sharp, but there was a newfound energy in her voice. One afternoon, as they sat by the window, Catherine spoke up unexpectedly. Do you believe in second chances, Marcus? I do, he said without hesitation. She looked thoughtful. Maybe it's time I start believing in them too. That night, Marcus lay in bed, replaying the day's events in his mind. Catherine Whitmore was a complex woman, strong, stubborn, and scared by loss. But beneath the layers of bitterness was a heart yearning to heal. And Marcus was determined to help her find that healing, one note at a time. Healing melodies. The morning dew glistened on the wild garden outside Whitmore Manor. Birds chirped from the ancient oak trees, their song breaking the tranquil silence. Marcus stood on the back patio, sipping his coffee as he watched the world wake up. The house had changed in subtle but noticeable ways. Rooms that had once felt cold and empty now carried the warmth of new life. Fresh flowers adorned the tables, and the faint scent of lavender filled the air. Catherine, though still guarded, had begun to engage in conversations beyond curt pleasantries. Marcus smiled to himself. Progress, no matter how small, was still progress. Inside, Catherine was already by the piano, her fingers hovering over the keys. Her wheelchair was positioned perfectly, and a sheet of music lay open on the stand. Marcus paused in the doorway, watching her with quiet admiration. "You're up early," he remarked. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted without looking at him. "Too much on my mind." "That's usually a good time to play," Marcus suggested. "Let it out through the music." Catherine's lips pressed into a thin line. "It's not that simple." "Maybe not, but you won't know until you try." With a deep breath, Catherine placed her hands on the keys and began to play. The melody was halting and uncertain at first, but as she continued, it grew steadier. Her fingers danced across the keys, bringing forth a hauntingly beautiful tune that filled the room. Marcus listened, captivated. The music spoke of loss, longing, and resilience. It was raw and unfiltered, a reflection of Catherine's journey. When she finished, silence hung in the air. "That was incredible," Marcus said softly. Catherine exhaled sharply. "It was messy." "Messy can be beautiful," Marcus countered. "And that was beautiful." She looked at him, skepticism warring with gratitude in her eyes. "You're impossible." "I get that a lot." Later that day, Marcus decided to tackle the overgrown garden. Weeds had claimed dominance, choking the once thriving rose bushes. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work, determined to restore some of the garden's former glory. As he pulled weeds and pruned branches, Catherine wheeled herself onto the patio. "Didn't know gardening was part of your job description," she called out. Marcus grinned. "It's not, but I figured this place could use a little love." Catherine watched him for a moment. "James loved this garden," she said quietly. "He used to spend hours out here, tending to every plant like it was a work of art." "Sounds like he had a green thumb," Marcus said, wiping sweat from his brow. "He did," Catherine said wistfully. "After he passed, I couldn't bear to come out here. It felt empty without him." Marcus nodded. "Grief has a way of stealing joy from the things we once loved." Catherine's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I suppose I let it win for too long." "It's never too late to take it back," Marcus said gently. She was quiet for a long moment before finally speaking. "Maybe you're right." In the weeks that followed, the garden transformed under Marcus's care. Catherine began joining him outside more frequently, offering advice and even planting a few flowers herself. One afternoon, as they admired their progress, Catherine spoke up. "Do you know why I agreed to have a caregiver?" Marcus glanced at her, surprised by the sudden question. "I figured it was doctor's orders." She shook her head. "I didn't want to at first, but there was this nagging feeling, this fear that I would spend the rest of my life alone, bitter and broken." "You're not broken," Marcus said firmly. Catherine's lips curved into a faint smile. "You always know what to say, don't you?" "I try." As they sat in companionable silence, Catherine's expression grew thoughtful. "Marcus, do you ever think about what you're meant to do in life?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "I used to think it was just getting by, taking care of people because it was a job. But now, I think it's more about making a real difference, even if it's just for one person." Catherine nodded slowly. "You've made a difference for me, you know." "Have I?" She met his gaze, her eyes unwavering. "Yes, you reminded me that there's still life to be lived, even when it feels like everything has been taken away." Marcus felt a surge of warmth at her words. "That means a lot, Catherine." "Don't let it go to your head," she said, though her tone was light. That evening, Marcus prepared a special dinner, roasted chicken with garlic potatoes and a fresh garden salad. The aroma filled the house, drawing Catherine to the dining room. "This smells amazing," she admitted begrudgingly. "I aim to please," Marcus said with a grin. As they ate, laughter filled the room, a sound that had been absent from Whitmore Manor for far too long. After dinner, Catherine surprised Marcus by wheeling herself to the piano. "Play something," she requested. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Me? You sure? Don't make me repeat myself." Chuckling, Marcus sat at the piano and played a lively tune. Catherine tapped her fingers along to the rhythm, a smile tugging at her lips. When he finished, she nodded approvingly. "Not bad. High praise coming from you," Marcus teased. Catherine's expression softened. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything." "You're welcome," he said sincerely. As the night wore on, Marcus couldn't help but feel that they were on the cusp of something transformative. Catherine Whitmore was no longer the bitter recluse he had first met. She was rediscovering herself, note by note, moment by moment. And Marcus was grateful to be part of that journey. A note unfolded. The scent of fresh blooms wafted through the garden as Marcus trimmed the last of the rose bushes. Spring had fully arrived, painting Whitmore Manor in shades of vibrant green and pastel hues. Catherine sat on the patio, a book resting on her lap, though she hadn't turned a page in several minutes. Her gaze seemed lost in thought, drifting far beyond the garden's edge. Marcus wiped his hands on a rag and walked over to her. "Penny for your thoughts." Catherine glanced up, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "I was just thinking how strange it is to feel content again." "Strange in a bad way?" "No, strange in a way that makes me wonder why I resisted it for so long." Marcus pulled up a chair beside her. "Sometimes we get so used to the dark that we forget what the light feels like." Catherine nodded thoughtfully. "You always have a metaphor ready, don't you?" "Occupational hazard," Marcus said with a grin. Their quiet moment was interrupted by the sound of the mail slot clattering. Catherine's brows furrowed. "I haven't received mail in weeks." "I'll grab it," Marcus offered, heading inside. When he returned, he carried a single envelope, its edges worn and yellowed with age. Catherine's breath hitched when she saw it. "What is it?" Marcus asked, noting her sudden tension. "It's nothing," she said quickly, reaching for the envelope with trembling hands. Marcus hesitated but handed it over. "Looks like it's been through a lot." Catherine didn't respond. She stared at the envelope as though it held the weight of the past. Without a word, she wheeled herself back inside, leaving Marcus puzzled. That evening, Marcus found Catherine sitting by the fireplace, the envelope unopened on the table beside her. The flames cast flickering shadows across her face, highlighting the turmoil in her expression. "You gonna open it?" Marcus asked gently. Catherine's lips pressed into a thin line. "I don't know if I can. Want some company while you decide?" She glanced at him, her eyes softening. "You never give up, do you?" "Not my style." With a deep breath, Catherine picked up the envelope and carefully tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the ink slightly faded but still legible. Her hand shook as she read the words, her face a mixture of shock and disbelief. "What does it say?" Marcus asked, concerned. Catherine's voice wavered as she read aloud. "Dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, it means I've failed to tell you in person. I always believed you'd carry the world on your shoulders, but I never wanted that weight to crush you. There's a key hidden behind the old portrait in the study. What it unlocks is yours to decide. Love always, James." Catherine's breath hitched. "James wrote this before he died." "I never knew." "A key," Marcus echoed. "What's it for?" "I have no idea," Catherine admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Only one way to find out," Marcus said, standing up. Catherine hesitated but nodded. "Let's go." In the dim light of the study, Catherine directed Marcus to the large portrait of James that hung above the fireplace. His eyes, even in paint, held the same warmth and strength Catherine had often described. "Behind the portrait," she said, her voice steadier now. Marcus carefully lifted the heavy frame from the wall. Behind it was a small hidden compartment. Nestled inside was an ornate brass key. "Got it," Marcus announced, holding it up. Catherine's eyes gleamed with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Now what?" "Any guesses on where this key fits?" Catherine thought for a moment. "There's an old chest in the attic. James always said it was just full of junk. But maybe. Let's check it out." The attic was filled with dust-covered trunks and forgotten relics of the past. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and mothballs. Marcus guided Catherine's wheelchair over the uneven floorboards until they reached a large weathered chest tucked in the corner. "This the one?" Marcus asked. Catherine nodded. "Yes." The brass key fit perfectly into the lock. With a satisfying click, the chest creaked open, revealing its contents: stacks of letters, faded photographs, and a velvet pouch. Catherine's breath caught as she reached for the pouch. Inside was a delicate locket, its surface etched with intricate floral patterns. She opened it to reveal a tiny photograph of herself and James on their wedding day. Tears welled in her eyes. "I thought this was lost forever." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Looks like James wanted you to have it back." As Catherine sifted through the letters, a story began to unfold. A tale of love, dreams, and plans they had never gotten to fulfill. "He wanted me to live," Catherine whispered, "even after he was gone." "And you still can," Marcus said softly. Catherine's gaze met his, determination shining through her tears. "You're right. It's time to stop living in the past." Over the following days, something shifted in Catherine. She wore the locket every day, a symbol of both loss and newfound hope. The garden bloomed brighter under her care, and music once again filled the halls of Whitmore Manor. One afternoon, as Marcus played a lively tune on the piano, Catherine laughed, a sound so joyful and unrestrained that it echoed through the house. "You've got some talent," she admitted. "Coming from you, that means a lot," Marcus teased. As the music faded, Catherine placed a hand over her heart. "Thank you, Marcus, for reminding me how to live." "Anytime," Marcus said warmly. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the garden in hues of gold and amber, it was clear that Whitmore Manor was no longer just a house of memories. It was a place of new beginnings, new paths, unfolding dreams. The first rays of dawn streamed through the tall windows of Whitmore Manor, casting golden light across the polished wood floors. Marcus stood by the window, sipping his morning coffee. The garden, once overgrown and wild, was now a vibrant tapestry of colors, a testament to months of hard work and healing. Behind him, Catherine wheeled into the room, her presence as commanding as ever. Though her body still bore the limitations of paralysis, her spirit had transformed. Gone was the woman who had once shrouded herself in grief and bitterness. In her place was someone who radiated strength and purpose. "You're up early," Marcus observed with a smile. "Couldn't sleep," Catherine admitted. "Too many ideas swirling in my head." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Ideas? Care to share?" Catherine's lips curled into a mischievous smile. "Patience, Marcus. All will be revealed in time. You're keeping secrets now," he teased. "Should I be worried?" "Maybe," she said cryptically before adding, "but in a good way." Later that morning, Catherine led Marcus to the study. The room had become their shared space, a place of music, conversations, and quiet reflection. Today, however, there was an air of anticipation. Catherine gestured to a stack of blueprints spread across the large oak desk. "Take a look." Marcus's eyes widened as he scanned the detailed sketches. "Are these renovation plans?" Catherine nodded. "I've decided to open Whitmore Manor to the public. It's been sitting here like a mausoleum for far too long. I want it to be a place where people can gather, create, and heal." Marcus's admiration was evident. "That's a bold move." "I've been living in the past for too long," Catherine said firmly. "It's time to create something new." Marcus traced a finger over the blueprints. Looks like you've thought this through. I have, Catherine confirmed. But I can't do it alone. I want you to be part of this, Marcus. As a partner, not just a caregiver. Marcus was momentarily speechless. Catherine, I don't know what to say. Say yes, she urged. You've already changed this place more than you realize. Together, we can turn it into something extraordinary. A slow smile spread across Marcus's face. How can I say no to that? The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Contractors and architects buzzed around the manor, transforming Catherine's vision into reality. The grand ballroom was restored to its former glory, with gleaming floors and crystal chandeliers. The garden was expanded to include walking paths and meditation nooks. Catherine was at the heart of it all, her determination unwavering. Marcus marveled at her resilience, knowing how far she had come. One afternoon, as they oversaw the installation of a new music hall, Catherine turned to Marcus. I have something for you. Marcus blinked in surprise. For me. She handed him a sleek envelope. Open it. Inside was a certificate of partnership, formally naming Marcus as co-founder of Whitmore Manor Arts and Wellness Center. I don't know what to say, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. Say you're ready for this next chapter, Catherine said with a smile. Marcus looked at her, gratitude shining in his eyes. With you, Catherine. Always. As the grand opening of the center approached, excitement filled the air. Invitations had been sent out to the local community, and the response was overwhelming. On the evening of the event, the manor was illuminated with soft lights, casting a magical glow over the grounds. Guests mingled in the garden, their laughter mingling with the gentle strains of live music. Catherine, dressed in an elegant navy gown, was the epitome of grace and strength. Marcus stood by her side, his suit impeccably tailored. You nervous? He asked. Terrified, Catherine admitted, though her smile remained steady. You've got this, Marcus assured her. As the music faded, Catherine wheeled herself to the front of the crowd. The guests fell silent, their attention riveted on her. Thank you all for being here tonight, she began. Whitmore Manor has been many things over the years, a place of love, loss, and isolation. But tonight, it becomes something new, a place of hope, creativity, and connection. Applause rippled through the crowd. Catherine's voice grew steadier. This transformation wouldn't have been possible without one person who reminded me that life doesn't end with loss. It begins anew. Marcus, thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. The crowd erupted into cheers, and Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. As the night wore on, guests explored the newly renovated manor, marveling at its beauty. Music filled the halls, laughter echoed through the garden, and a sense of renewal permeated the air. Catherine and Marcus stood on the patio, watching the scene unfold. We did it, Catherine said softly. Marcus nodded. Yeah, we did. Catherine's eyes sparkled. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, Marcus agreed, clinking his glass against hers. And as the stars shimmered overhead, Whitmore Manor stood as a testament to the power of healing, hope, and the courage to embrace the future. A legacy of hope. The morning after the grand opening dawned crisp and bright. The air was filled with the scent of fresh blossoms, and sunlight streamed through the windows of Whitmore Manor, illuminating every corner of the transformed estate. The echoes of last night's music and laughter still lingered in the halls, a testament to the success of Catherine and Marcus's shared vision. Marcus stood by the kitchen window, nursing a cup of coffee. He watched as Catherine wheeled herself along the garden path, stopping occasionally to admire the flowers they had planted together. Her locket gleamed in the sunlight, a symbol of the past she had finally embraced. Smiling, Marcus stepped outside to join her. Enjoying the morning? He asked as he approached. It feels different today, Catherine said thoughtfully. Lighter. That's what success does, Marcus teased. Fills the air with good vibes. Catherine laughed softly. You always have a way with words. I try. They walked, or rather, strolled, in companionable silence, the garden alive with birdsong and the rustle of leaves. There's something I want to show you, Catherine said suddenly, her tone serious. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What's that? Follow me. Catherine led him to a section of the estate they hadn't visited often, an old stone path lined with towering oaks. At the end of the path stood a small weathered building with ivy clinging to its walls. What is this place? Marcus asked, curiosity piqued. It was James's private studio, Catherine explained. I haven't been inside since he passed. Marcus hesitated. Are you sure you want to go in now? Catherine nodded firmly. It's time. She unlocked the door with a key that had long hung on a chain in her study. The door creaked open, revealing a space frozen in time. Canvases leaned against the walls. Paintbrushes lay scattered on tables, and the faint scent of turpentine lingered in the air. James was an artist, Marcus asked, impressed. He was, Catherine said softly, but he kept it mostly to himself. This was his sanctuary. Marcus walked over to a canvas draped with a cloth. Mind if I look? Go ahead. He lifted the cloth to reveal a stunning portrait of Catherine. Her expression was serene, her eyes filled with warmth and strength. Wow, Marcus breathed. He really captured you. Catherine's voice wavered. He always saw the best in me, even when I couldn't see it myself. Marcus placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Seems like he left more than just memories. He left inspiration. Catherine's eyes glimmered with unshed tears. I want this place to be part of the center, she said decisively. A space for artists to create, to find solace. I think James would love that, Marcus said sincerely. Over the following months, Whitmore Manor blossomed into a thriving hub of creativity and healing. The once quiet estate now buzzed with activity. Artists painting in James's studio, musicians rehearsing in the music hall, and visitors finding peace in the lush gardens. Catherine had become a beacon of hope, her story inspiring countless others who had faced loss and adversity. Her determination to turn pain into purpose resonated deeply with everyone who crossed her path. One afternoon, as Marcus helped organize a community event, a young girl approached him. Are you Marcus? She asked shyly. That's me, he said with a smile. What can I do for you? My mom said you're the reason Miss Catherine smiles again, the girl said earnestly. Marcus's heart swelled. Well, I think Miss Catherine did most of the work herself. I just reminded her how amazing she is. The girl beamed. You're pretty amazing too. Thanks, kiddo. That means a lot. As the girl ran off to join her friends, Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had come to Whitmore Manor as a caregiver, but he had found so much more. A purpose, a family, and a legacy worth building. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Catherine and Marcus sat out on the patio, watching the sky turn shades of pink and gold. Hard to believe how far we've come, Catherine mused. It's been a journey, that's for sure, Marcus agreed. Catherine's gaze was thoughtful. Do you ever think about what comes next? Always, Marcus said with a grin. But I've learned to enjoy the moment too. Catherine nodded. Wise words. They sat in comfortable silence, the weight of the past replaced by the promise of the future. Thank you, Marcus, Catherine said softly, for everything. You don't have to thank me, he replied. We did this together. Catherine's lips curved into a smile. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, Marcus echoed. As the stars shimmered overhead, Whitmore Manor stood as a testament to resilience, love, and the power of second chances. And in that moment, Catherine and Marcus knew that their journey was far from over. It was just the beginning of a beautiful new chapter.